you have to move with the market. There's always a real estate market. Whether or not you're built to work in it is on you.
Welcome back to the show. My guest today has lived 3 lives. His name is Mike Little, and he is from Hampton Roads out there with Joni G. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Remington. Good. How about yourself?
It has been a good day. Joni G, one of our veterans. You were the first one, I believe, to be a rising star featured as someone brand new in real estate, and then most recently featured on the cover. That's quite a feat. You took a quantum leap, huh?
That's what they say, but I say I just got out of the military.
Well, I mentioned before you, and this is straight from you, is that you've lived 3 lives. The first life being your childhood, a little rough, and we're gonna talk about that. Then you got into the Navy, and now in such a short amount of time, building a monster real estate team and production. Let's start with your upbringing. It wasn't always sunshine and rainbows for you, Mike.
No, definitely not. So when people ask me where I'm from, typically they get Ohio, right? Because I graduated high school there. I joined the Navy out of Ohio. But the reality is I'm actually from Boston, Massachusetts. I was born right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. But at the age of 3, I was given to foster care. So my father left when I was 6 weeks old, and then my mother gave me up when I was 3 years old. So from that point up until the age of 17, when I joined the military, basically I just moved around a lot, never really had a stable home, never had a true sense of family. Eventually I would be adopted by what would turn out to be my biological father's ex-wife, and he would go to prison. So that whole story, I mean, that could be a whole story in and of itself, but the reality is somebody ended up taking me in for a few years and putting food on the table until I was able to graduate high school and see my way up to the Navy. So yeah, not all sunshine and rainbows, but it definitely prepared me for life, you know.
So what did that do for you? I mean, in and out of foster care and then joining the Navy, typically when someone does that, they're either forced to, or they just know it's a good idea for themselves. Is that kind of where you were?
I mean, absolutely, man. I actually, most of my high school friends are dead or in prison.
Oh, wow.
And my mother died of a heroin overdose. My father is still currently addicted to crack cocaine and in and out of jail. So for me, it was just like, I got to get out of this place. Nothing good is going to come of staying here. And I know that there's a better life to be had. So that was just kind of like, a lot of recruiters came to school. I was like, well, that seems like an easy path out of here, put me on the bus.
Yeah.
But that was really it, man. I just kind of wanted to give my siblings something to look up to. And I wanted to get away from, like, I don't know, it's kind of like, you're either going to go to prison or die kind of thing. And I didn't want to live that life. So
you say siblings, was that siblings in foster care or actual siblings from your parents?
See, and even that is intricate, man. Because my father's ex-wife, Kim, who's the woman that took me in, she had 2 daughters with my father, but she also had a daughter from her previous marriage. And then when she remarried,
so those are the siblings you're talking about.
Kids, and it just, I guess you could just say basically the people that I kind of grew up with.
Yeah.
Only 2 of them are half blood. My only full-blooded sibling, we don't talk. She's much like our mother. So I just, it's pretty dark in a lot of angles, man. And I just wanted to always head to the light. So.
And it sounds like you found that in the Navy at 14 years. When you first got there, coming from, I mean, if you the background that you had your first year in the Navy, I'm guessing was quite a shock. Do you remember those feelings?
Man, I was a very angry teenager. If you can imagine, from foster care to not having my dad, to my mom giving me away again, to my dad going to prison when I met him, that's a lot. And then I'm going to stand here and let whoever talk to me however they feel. Like, I was pretty much already a grown man at that point. It wasn't like you were talking to a child. I had been cooking and cleaning and going to work and, kind of taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So it was very hard for me, but it was also humbling. I mean, I learned a lot in the military regarding just work ethic, leadership, everything to general cleanliness. Like, there's no way I could run the multiple businesses that I run now without having that 14 years of tutelage and mentorship and guidance. And, it forces you to grow up. And although I had grown up, I hadn't grown up as an adult, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I never had a steady paycheck. I didn't have the ability to go get a car or buy a house, or nobody even taught me about these things. Where I'm from, people have a poverty mindset. They don't think about $1 million. They don't think about $1 billion. They don't think about, they're thinking about, is it Friday? I need the weekend off.
Yeah.
And that's just it's a poor man's mindset, kind of where I'm from.
Was there anyone that was your culture? That was what most people were thinking, living paycheck to paycheck, drug ridden. Was there anyone in your life that, or maybe on TV, or was there, I imagine even as a kid though, there was some dreams that you had of being a millionaire, was there anyone?
So I found a lot of different idols in sports figures and military figures and a few politicians. I liked history a lot. Theodore Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, things like that probably come from my military service. I was always studious of like the ship I was serving on and the history and the namesake and things like that. But also sports, man, like when you don't, it's hard. I don't know how to explain it. When you don't have anything, and the one thing you have is that weight room or the basketball court or playing ball out in front of the house with your friends. All of those things were my escapes. So my heroes became Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. And and I don't like a super clean cut guy either. I like somebody that's been through, life and has had to bounce back. I kind of look at people, take Mike Tyson, for instance. I watched him reach the peak of his career, and then I watched him go all the way back down. And if you look at him today, he's all the way back up, right? So those are the kind of people that I was like, man, if they can make it, we can make it. Like, so like when I was in high school, LeBron James was in high school. Yeah. I'm living in Ohio. Right. You're watching this kid strike a $90 million Nike deal while everybody's talking about, we can't get out of this place. Like, no, he's going right now. You know what I mean? So there was always hope in that. And when I moved from Boston, I moved to Dayton, Ohio. So they're both very blue collar, rough, rugged, and if you fuse those two together and you look at the people that come out of those places, the names that you could spit off are crazy. Super successful people. John Legend, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Machine Gun Kelly, Joyner. Like, I can list probably 10, 15 millionaires that are just from those crappy little neighborhoods. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But they had that hunger because of their environment. So I always kind of looked at those people, man. Jordan was somebody basketball is one of my favorite things. Weightlifting is one of my favorite things. I was a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. I was a huge, Jean-Claude Van Damme fan. Basically, if you were in shape or you were a top boxer, fighter, basketball player, I kind of lived vicariously through that during my youth, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like you were sure at a young age that you were going to get out of there, or were you discouraged a lot? Did you feel like, was it more of a dream, or were you like, no, I'm going to get out of here? Because the Navy seems like, I wonder if you felt like that was at the time getting in the way of your dreams of being this millionaire, getting out of the neighborhood, or if you truly understood that you needed a stepping stone.
So initially, I just wanted a stepping stone. You can ask anybody that grew up in those places or around me. It was something everybody always kind of said, like, Mike's different, Mike's going to make it. And it was really just based on, I always had crazy work ethic. I was always confident in myself, no matter what was going on. But when you come from what I come from, you have to be. Mm-hmm. You can't be scared of a stranger. You can't be scared to make your own plate. You can't be Like you have to learn how to live and survive. So for me, I used to tell everybody, I'm going to have nice cars. I'm going to have a beautiful woman. I'm going to live in a beautiful house. I'm not going to be broke when I grow up. Like I always knew that. Getting there was much different than I had thought, though. I mean, originally I joined the Navy to just get out, but then when I found my stride in the Navy, I found that I was very good at it.
Yeah.
I made chief in 11 years, which is E7. The highest rank you can go is E9, you know, as an enlisted person anyways. And I did that in a short amount of time. And I was always a high performer, even after all the struggles, you know, but I started selling real estate while I was in the Navy. And that's when I started seeing that the Navy was getting in my way. I'd be floating in the ocean like, man, I did 3 million last month. I sure would like to be home. Like what's my resume look like if I'm not floating in the middle of the ocean? You know, I fought with that for a decade. And then I went through, you know, that's another phase of my life. I went through a divorce, had to go through a custody battle. And in that time, I said, you know what, I'm going to get out of the military. I'm going to chase my dreams because I don't answer to anybody. And when I decided to do that, business took off. I took a few risks, and now I got 5 offices, 185 agents. I got remarried last weekend to gorgeous woman that owns a restaurant, and she's also a business owner. And so we just, you know, all the bad stuff that happened to me turned out to be the greatest things that ever happened to me.
Sure.
But what people miss is that result is actually up to you.
Well, I asked you in the pre-show if you feel like people are making excuses, because I feel like if there's anyone who could make excuses, I feel like you'd be at the top of that list with everything that you had going on, but you're not. So tell me about, I mean, we've got hundreds of thousands, over 1 million realtors in America. Why are they not all seeing the same successes? What are these excuses you're hearing?
So people are blaming interest rates. People are blaming lack of inventory. People are blaming politics. People are blaming everything except for themselves, basically. Mm-hmm. So since the beginning of time, people have needed a place to live. Whether somebody was building a clay hut or a teepee or an A-frame or a plantation house, or I can go through the whole evolution of real estate because it's one of the things I love in life and I'm a nerd, right? But the point is, no matter what was going on with the economy or the environment, people were making and building places to live. Everybody's always looking for a place to live. So why talk about the negative things in the market when you could talk about, well, yeah, your mortgage is 7%, but rent is 100% interest. Things like that. Like, it's our job to switch the conversation. Oh, inventory's low. Well, as a realtor, you should be outdoor knocking. You should be sending mailers. You should be cold calling. You should be doing open houses. You should be networking. You should be. So the reason you don't have listings is you.
Man, it's like kids. I mean, it's like I have 3 kids, and if you ask one of them, why did you do that? Typically, at least at this stage in life, they're like, well, so-and-so. And the first thing they say as out of their mouth is what someone else did and why and we don't change. I mean, in the professional world, I mean, so parents, fathers and mothers of these kids are doing the same things when asked about why they're not getting the success they want or their frustrations in this business, and they start to point. Yeah.
But the reality is you have to move with the market. There's always a real estate market. Whether or not you're built to work in it is on you. You know, I chose to go the broker route and start signing agents and grow offices, but I still sell houses at a high level.
Sure.
But the requirement of consistency, dedication, and the things that I do every single day to have my success aren't things that people want to do, man. They don't want to get up at 4 a.m. They don't want to do all their follow-up and their workout and their personal time before 7 a.m. because at 7:30, I'm on everybody else's clock, right? I have 180 agents. I got 5 admin staff. I got a title company that has 15 people involved. You know, it's just like, if people knew the things that you're actually doing to have all this success, they call it, um, that's where you would draw the line of, that's where the excuses start. You got people that do things and people that talk about doing things. Yeah. I'm on the side of getting those things done.
Well, tell me about the transition of getting out of because the Navy was very powerful for you. From everything I hear, it saved your life in a way.
I would agree with you 100% with that statement. I would.
But at one point, you're like, "Hey, real estate is my new path." But from what you said, it sounded like you're doing both for a little while. So how did you first get recruited into real estate or find real estate, and then what was that transition?
That came about because I was a young undesignated E3. I had a baby on the way and I was broke. So I started doing construction on the side for cash under the table.
Can I ask you something? What I don't know if you're allowed to discuss this. I think you would be, but what were you making in the Navy? What was your hours like? Like what can you give me a picture of what that actually looks like?
When I first joined the military, my paychecks on the 1st and 15th were like $356.
But they were providing housing. You were living on base or not all the time?
I was stationed on a ship, which means your housing is the ship.
Right.
And if people don't know, that's not a very good living condition. We're not talking about a luxury yacht here. We're talking about a warship made of steel that serves you slop to eat and puts you on watch in the middle of the night. And, it's not I won't knock the Navy or where I got in life after it, but I will say that looking back, ideally, I wouldn't put myself in those conditions again.
In the middle of them, where you're like, man, what am I doing?
Kinda, yeah, because when you have like a high performance ability like I do, when you're just driven and it doesn't matter, I don't have to know everything. I don't have to like, I'm a perfectionist, but to a point. Like I am known to get the job done, get it done to the best of my ability, keep everybody safe. Just like I'm a decision maker. And when you start realizing that you're performing at a level that doesn't get you paid anymore, the guy sitting next to you who does absolutely nothing is getting paid the same amount as you, you start asking yourself questions like, am I more valuable than this? And I knew I was, because I was already making more money selling real estate than I was from the Navy at a certain point. Not in the beginning, but I was working construction. Me and my buddy saw a realtor roll up to the house and we're like, this dude's driving a brand new Beamer. He's wearing a nice like windbreaker, like he just left the gym. He's got 2 cell phones going popping. I'm like, man, what are we doing wrong? So we went and got our license, and then I learned very quickly that selling real estate is not easy. It took me 9 months to sell my first house. And then every year I just kind of built my business. And when I finally decided to leave the Navy, I had been doing it part-time for almost a decade. But I knew when I left, I'm like, I'm doing real estate,
Bobby told me I need to ask you about your first transaction, that 9 month, that I'm guessing he's talking about that first sale.
Yeah. So for 9 months, man, I got my license. I bought a suit. I joined a firm. I joined a team. I'm chasing leads. I'm making cold calls. I'm doing open houses. And I could not sell a house, man. I could not sell a house. I showed a guy over 50 properties, never wrote a contract, man. And I let that guy, but he taught me that lesson for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
But after that first sale was actually a fellow sailor that was serving with me on shore duty at the time, came to me and said, I know a lot of realtors, but I don't know anybody that works as hard as you, and I'm going to give you a shot. And ever since then, I've been selling real estate. So, man. Because that's the thing, like sometimes all you need is the opportunity. It's up to you after that,
And I like how you phrased that about that guy that you showed 50 houses to. He taught you that lesson for the rest of your career. I don't know many people that adopt that mindset, and some of them, and some of us do. Some of us are like, okay, well, that was a good lesson, but I mean, you're pretty. That was a bold statement that you made. Like, he taught me that lesson, not I learned that lesson. Like, that guy taught you. That's a very interesting way to put it.
Because that's the reality. I allowed him to take up that time and energy from me. So he taught me the lesson of I don't deal with the person like that. You see what I'm saying? Like, but I remember his name. I remember the rental that he still lives at to this day. Because I'm petty like that. I'm a swing through. I want to know where we went. You know what I'm saying? But I just was always that way, man. Just like I would say that being a chief in the Navy, everything I went through to achieve that also prepared me to be a business owner. It's crazy if you look at certain things in the military and certain things in business. Every branch of the military is just a big business. They're the same thing. It's just out here, there's no ceiling on my income.
Yeah. So what was that shift then physically when you started? I mean, you said you sold, did you say you sold 3 million and you're sitting on a ship wondering what you're doing?
100%.
3 houses. Yeah. So when you were like, hey, I got to make a change, what did that transition look like?
So what really happened was I went through my divorce, and during that divorce, the ex had reached out to the Navy and said some not so nice things. So they put me under investigation. They actually busted me down in rank and tried to kick me out. And then I fought them and I won. And after I won and got my honorable, basically they said that, they violated my constitutional rights and there was no evidence to support the decisions that were made by that chain of command. And once they told me that I could stay in, you know what I did? Nah, I'm good, y'all. You showed me your true colors. So I'm going to go ahead and give you notice now. The end of my contract is in 30 days. I'm going to separate from the United States Navy.
Yeah.
And then I went on my last underway in the Navy. I read Grant Cardone's Sell or Be Sold and Dean Graziosi's Millionaire Success Habits. Right after I read those books, I sent my request to separate, and we came back, and I never went out to sea again. I dove into real estate first time, and within a year, I owned my own firm. Within 2 years, I went from just being an agent to being a diamond level salesman, and also multiple offices. And now it's just now I'm the principal broker of 5 offices. So. I feel like
you attract people like yourself, and I'm wondering what kind of conversations you have with an agent that's looking at signing on with you. I mean, I'm guessing you're looking for the hustle and the grit, but what do those conversations look like when you let them know a little bit about yourself and what you're looking to build?
So what I tell everybody really is like, what's your goal? Because the goal of my company is to just support any realtor or any broker or any team lead to accomplish their goals. So that's my first thing is like, what do you want to do? Because we're going to tailor it to that. Not everybody wants 200 agents and 5 offices and still selling 15 million a year as an independent agent. I know that that's insane to some people. Some people only want to make 50 grand. Some people want to make 100 grand. So I put it on them, and then I'll put it in reverse and tell them what's required to get to that point. So, if you come to me and tell me you want to do 20 million your first year in real estate in this market, in this area, you're probably going to get a chuckle in your face, but I will tell people like, you can do it, probably not your first year. And it's probably not as easy as you think it is. And I give it to them real, man. Like, you got to ask them, what do you want? Do you expect to be handed leads, or are you actually going to build a business? Because those are 2 different things.
Yeah.
So I just set the expectation there. And whichever route they're trying to go, I just give them a path forward for that. But when they come at me like, oh, I want to be like you, I tell them what's required. What time do you get up every day? What do you work out? Like, what do your finances look like? Do you you're not just a real estate agent. And for me, you're an entrepreneur. You need to be operating as your own business, So that's what I teach agents, is to be a business and not be an agent. If you're making over 140 grand a year and you don't have your own S corporation set up and you're not paying yourself as an employee, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Basic beginnings.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason I do that though, is because that's going to set them up for success, which ultimately sets me and my company up for success. Right. So if myself and my business partners are training the agents to, hey, set this up from the beginning, get your finances right from the beginning, pay your taxes right from the beginning. Now they can reach that level of excellence and performance because they're not going to have that financial burden.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, And even right there, that's a segue that I took from the military that I use in my leadership and business.
Yeah.
Almost everything I do, I learned in the military. We learned, they teach you not necessarily how to be a millionaire, but they teach you how to budget. They teach you, hey, save some money. They teach you how to do certain things as far as being organized and saving and budgeting. And they do teach you about insurance. People just aren't listening. You know what I mean? Like as far as whole term life policies and retirement plans. And
sure.
If you just take those items and apply them to business, that's really what I've done.
It's interesting. I wonder, people that come from humble beginnings, $300 every 2 weeks, they better be teaching you a budget. I wonder how you, like now that you've, for lack of better terms, made it, and you've got a little bit bigger budget. Do you find it's hard to apply the same type of principles to a budget with a much bigger amount of revenue coming in, or do you, are you enjoying it?
I invest a lot of what we earn, as far as the brokerage side, a lot of that money has gone back into the business because we opened location 3, 4, 5, but having owned also interests in other avenues of real estate, I have found has been the most lucrative thing.
Yeah.
So, but I also still sell houses. So for me, it isn't any different aside from the fact that I allocate the money differently. Instead of putting money in a savings account, I put money in a flip. I invest money in that new office. I invest money in that next event for the company. It's just. But I set up my own retirement account that I contribute to monthly. I set up my own brokerage account that I contribute to monthly. So instead of just out there blowing all your bread, you should be building your own retirement plan and matching it, just like a corporation would. You know what I mean? Why go out here and make all the money if you're not going to make any smart moves with it? So yeah, I guess I'm just always investing my money, man. Like I bought a new house, but I bought the ugliest house in the nicest neighborhood. So then I renovated that house. So now I'm about to get that house appraised and then pull money out on that house so I can use that money in other business ventures or maybe lend that money to other investors. And it just becomes new things. That's all.
Well, Mike, we're out of time. Congrats on your new marriage and all the big things you got going on. Congrats on being the first cover to graduate from being a rising star. You're on your way to bigger and better things. It's been a great interview. No excuses. I think that snippet of you laughing when I said our agent's making excuses is probably my favorite part of today.
I'm sure all of our agents here in Iron Valley will get a nice chuckle out of that as well.
Well, this has been the Real Producers Podcast. If you're listening to this and you are in one of our markets, make sure you're getting involved in the events and the magazine. If you are in a market where we don't have a magazine, you could be the person to bring it, or you can recommend someone to do that so you too can have the events and the magazine in your neighborhood. Mike, it's been real. We'll see you next time on the Real Producers Podcast.